opened up a lot of factories. At one time they were opening one factory a week. And factories like Victoria's Secret and Walmart and Fredericks of Hollywood and so on are all based, do their sewing in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, so this is giving more employment to the local people?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, they're employing all locals.
Yes.
How on earth did you become Consul of Sri Lanka?
Well, I was at the right place, I suppose, at the right time. They were looking for a consul, and they wanted someone that had been to the country, had seen it, and that was impartial, because they have a little war going on, and they didn't want someone from to be a Sri Lanka native, so they chose me, and they also wanted someone with a downtown office.
And surely your background in business and land developing helped also.
Yes, it did, yes.
What are your duties? You're encouraging...
my duties primarily are to help trade, investment, and tourism to Sri Lanka.
So you would be the perfect person, actually, with your background.
I don't issue any visas or passports because it's sort of a one-person office and it would involve too much time, but I really enjoy the job, and the people are marvelous, and especially in the country. When you go and see the country, they're so helpful and so nice and friendly.
So who are the people? It's a mix of Senegalese?
It's primarily people from India that came about 2,500 years ago, and those are the Sinhalese.
Right.
And they came from northern India. And then about 500 years ago, there were people from southern India called the Tamils. And then there were Europeans and so on, mixture of other, the Muslim people and so on.
Wasn't there a little bit of racial tension a while back?
Well, there still is, and the new prime minister and president is, the new president is trying to resolve the tension, and there's ongoing talks and so on. It's high time that it was resolved, and I'm hopeful that it will be perhaps this year.
Yeah, especially seeing that it's such a lovely country.
And then, you know, the tensions all around the world, it seem to be resolving themselves.
Absolutely. The new age is coming.
Yes.
We'll all live in peace and harmony, hopefully. Are there a lot of opportunities for Canadians in business in Sri Lanka?
There are opportunities. There's tremendous opportunities there, because the people are all willing to work. They're good education there, and it's so close to the ports and airports and so on. So the opportunities are there, and especially the gem industry is very well known around the world. They produce a lot of gems, and as I said, tea is their primarily export, and rubber products and coconut products and all kinds of fruit and flowers and fish and you name it, they've got it pretty well.
Great. So a Canadian that would be interested in developing a business in Sri Lanka, would that person go into those industries, or are they open to... They're open
to all, computer industries or whatever, yes. Yeah. So it's wide open.
So it's a good opportunity.
Yes. And it's one of the Asian developing countries that are going very, very quickly. Their economy is moving very quickly.
Yeah.
So that's nice to see, because at one time they were a very, very poor country. And they still are to a certain extent, but with the Americans and the Chinese and British and Germans putting in money into the country, it's certainly helped. And Canada has been at the forefront, because Canada helped build the first airport in Sri Lanka. And Canada's given a lot of money to various projects in Sri Lanka. And so Canada is well respected in the country.
Great. So Canadians going down can relax, right?
They get preferential treatment.
Okay, that's good.
Yes.
That's good. So if a person were interested in getting into business in Sri Lanka, would they call you up, Mir?
Yes, they would, and probably I'd enlist the help of the High Commission in Ottawa, and between us we'd help a Canadian business person get started and give them all the information that they need.
Sounds like a wonderful place for holiday.
Oh,
sunshine? Lots of sunshine
most of the year, and the temperature around the beaches is in the mid-80s all the time. And there's cool places too, like there's a place called Nurillia, which is like British Columbia. It has in the mountains, and it's cool in most of the year. It's in the 70s. And they have their rainy seasons, but it's, as I said, a very tropical place, and a wonderful place to drive around and to see the beaches, and they're sort of not spoiled yet, so there hasn't been too much development on the beaches, so they're in their natural state.
Great.
I a couple of years ago, I spent some time at the most southerly point of Sri Lanka, and it was very quiet, very tourists hadn't found the place yet, and it was called the Peacock Beach Hotel. It's very nice.
Lovely. Do you, on a personal note, do you get time to visit, being consul and all that?
Oh yes.
Yeah,
yes,
that's great.
Yes. They had the expo of their products a couple years ago, and actually they had another expo this year, or last year, '94, and they try to get business people from all over the world to come and see their products and their exports, and that is a wonderful opportunity for a Canadian then to go at that time.
Yeah, great.
Or anyone who wants to do business with Sri Lanka.
Great. Okay, let's, so anyone who does can phone you up and
Yes.
you'll help them out. That's
Yes.
great. Let's move on to your videos. You've produced several videos, very exciting ones. One is on the Ukraine.
Well, both are on Ukraine, but
Yeah.
one is called Ukraine, the Land and Its People,
Yeah.
and the other one is called Golden Kyiv, which is the capital of Ukraine.
Yeah. Why Ukraine?
I was born in Ukraine,
Yeah.
and I came to Vancouver when I was a little boy, and I've lived most of my life in Vancouver, and when Ukraine got its independence in 1991, I was very fascinated to go into the country because it was freer and more open. And I wanted to see for myself what Ukraine looked like, and we traveled 22 out of the 25 provinces in Ukraine and filmed it, and it was a very exciting time because everything was just opening up, and Russia and the Soviet Union, well, of course Soviet Union had fallen apart, and Ukrainians had to fend for themselves because mostly the managers and the overseers of all the factories in Ukraine were based in Moscow. Now it was all of a sudden one day they were all based out of Kyiv or other parts of Ukraine.
How does that impact on the people? I mean, what were the feelings that you picked up on your, it must have been incredible.
Well, people
Things
were
changing
very
overnight.
excited about the fact that Ukraine had gained its independence. They were thriving for that for years and years and years, and over the last 70 years prior to independence, they were quite Russified, and people were told to speak Russian and to abandon some of their culture, and people were excited about getting their freedom. But then shortly thereafter they found out that they got their freedom, but
Then what?
the economy was getting bad because they didn't know how to manage their economy, so it was difficult for them, and it still is very difficult right now.
The state is not good there, is it? It's,
No, the inflation rate in 1 year I think was over 3,000%.
Good heavens.
It seems to have stabilized a little bit now, but it's still very, very difficult. They also don't have too much of their natural gas and oil, so they have to import most of it from Russia and Kazakhstan, and they owe billions and billions of dollars now to Russia and Kazakhstan. I don't know how they're going to pay it, but I guess they will.
So the people, the average person's having a tough time, and wages are very low.
The wages are incredibly low. Compared to Russia, Russians, the average wage there is about $100 per month or higher, and in Ukraine it's average is about $20 a month.
$20 a month with an inflation rate of 3,000%. How do the people live, Mir?
I don't know. I don't know how the pensioners live. I think they live only on bread and water, most of them, and maybe a little bit of potatoes and so on.
Yeah.
They certainly can't afford to buy meat because a kilo of meat or sausage, Ukrainian sausage, costs somewhere around $3 or $4. And everything now is in world prices.
Yeah.
Prior to a couple years ago, you could still get bargains, but now you can't. It's all world prices now. And I don't know how people live.
How do they live?
The farmers do quite well because they
can grow.
They can grow and so on. But the people in the city, especially the older people, it's very, very tough for them. The younger people seem to find jobs and get out and sell things and get by.
Plus they are younger, so they can handle it.
Yes.
The hardship a little more. Are there agencies, social agencies, that help the elderly?
No.
With meals? No?
No, there's no such thing as that.
As we have here?
They look after, they look to their families to help them out somehow. And a lot of people have friends and family in the villages, so they seem to get some potatoes and food that way.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a lot of old age pensioners and seniors that won't get any help from the villages, so it'd be very tough.
Yeah. We don't know how lucky we are.
That's
in
for
Canada.
Sure. That's for sure.
And with the harsh winters too, it must be awful for them.
But you know, when you travel across Ukraine and you meet people, they invite you into their home and they'll put out, the whole table is full of food. I don't know where they get it, but they just are very hospitable and very friendly, and after a while you start singing with them and reminiscing, and it's a pleasure going there and visiting the country.
And okay, so that's your video on Ukraine, and then Kiev. That one concentrated more on the culture and the art, the museums, did it not?
Well,
tell us about it.
It tries to show what Kiev looks like. Kiev is a fascinating city. It's over 1,500 years old. It's got the main church there is over 950 years old. It's got hundreds of churches. Some were destroyed by the Soviet regime. But the churches that have remained are either museums or are starting now to be opened up as churches.
Yeah.
And most of them have golden domes, so it's fascinating when you drive around the city and see the gold glittering in the sunlight.
Is it Scythian gold?
No, the Scythian gold is the, there was a tribe of people, I guess they were a Mongol type of people from the Genghis Khan era, or maybe before that, and they had quite a civilization. They had made all kinds of ornaments out of gold, and some of them have been found and are located in one of the museums in Kiev. Fascinating. And also there's bones, mammoth bones, and I guess dinosaur bones and so on. In 1991, when the Ukrainian Canadians were celebrating 100 years in Canada, they had asked Ukraine for permission to ship the Scythian gold and mammoths and all kinds of treasures out of Ukraine for a tour of Canada. At that time, negotiations were going very, very slowly, and it seemed that Ukraine wouldn't let the treasures out of Ukraine. But now an agreement has been reached, and the Royal Ontario Museum has negotiated with Ukraine to bring the treasures to Canada in 1996. So there will be a tour of these treasures, and they're fascinating pieces of gold and history, Ukrainian history. And they'll be touring 3 cities in Canada. One will be Toronto or Ontario, maybe Ottawa, I guess. The second will be Vancouver, hopefully, and the Vancouver Museum is negotiating right now to bring the treasures here. And then the third city will be Edmonton, and there may be another American city added to that tour. But I saw some of the treasures, and they're really, really beautiful. And I was in Seattle to see the King Tut exhibit, and I saw the Ramses exhibit in Vancouver during Expo. And I saw parts of the Genghis Khan exhibit that will be shown in Victoria starting the end of this month. So this is along the likes of those 3 exhibits.
Great, so we'll get to experience and appreciate.
If Vancouver Museum and the provincial government and the Ukrainian community in Vancouver can get their act in order, then we'll be able to see these fascinating treasures.
Well, we'll look forward to that. You were also asked to do a video for Russia, and you're tentative about that because of the situation.
Well,
what is this?
I've been asked to do a video for Sri Lanka and also Russia. Russia would be a very difficult country to do a video on because it's such a big and extensive country. It would probably take about 6 months of my life, maybe to a year of traveling and getting it organized and so on, several trips back to Russia. And I'm kind of hesitating right now. I haven't committed whether I'm going to do the video on Russia. And Sri Lanka, I'm tempted to do it, but I have to find the time. It's a smaller country. The video can be done much faster, probably in a couple months. But
they're both tempting propositions.
They are tempting.
But you have
but you got to make
so many
money
other
too,
things,
so,
right?
yes.
That's right, Mir. What is the situation, just briefly, in Russia? What are your feelings on Yeltsin, and are they coming out of
well, they've come
the
out
hardships of the change? And
the hardships better than Ukraine has, but they still got a long ways to go. The recent war has not helped. And I hope there won't be too many other wars breaking out, because we need stability in that region. Right. But they seem to be further along. The great problems in Russia right now is the control by the mafia.
The mafia, that's what I was going to mention.
And the racketeers. And I guess they are spearheading the business community. After first they become mafiosos, and then they become legitimate business people. So they are helping the economy, I would imagine, but it's not that easy to live in that system.
And this is this just a result of drastic change, sudden change?
I would think so.
You see this working its way out?
I would think so, yes. Previously, under the Soviet regime, people were not free, and they couldn't express their opinions freely, and they had to lie, and a lot of them stole from the state. So I guess they had good experience in stealing and illegitimate activities. So I suppose that's what brought on the mafia and the racketeering.
The average Russian, are they experiencing hardship in their lives, or are things looking a little brighter for them?
Well, they're a little better. Because their wages are a little higher, but I'm sure pensioners are experiencing a lot of hardship, because all of a sudden they were thrown into world prices. Previously it was all subsidized by the state. A loaf of bread cost less than 1 cent. Now maybe it's 50 cents or 25 cents. The transportation system was very, very inexpensive, and now they're paying 25 to 50 cents for transport and so on. So, and they're not getting that much more than they were getting before. So it is very, very difficult for people.
I heard, this is just an aside, that there aren't any freezings with dentistry, and people have to go through that cold. Is that true?
Well, fortunately, I didn't have any experience with dentistry.
But is that the truth?
It's possible, yes, because the medicines are very hard to come by. Even the local medicine that was made in the former Soviet Union is very hard to come by, but Western medicine is very expensive, and you can't find it sometimes. Sometimes there is a little bit of it, sometimes there's a glut, and sometimes there's no medicine. So
the thought of having a drill without freezing.
That wouldn't worry me so much. It's the hospitals that would worry me, because the hospitals don't have the medicines. They're poorly equipped. They're not as clean as our hospitals, and they're old and falling apart and so on. So I would certainly not like to get sick there.
Sick in Russia.
Or Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, we might see a video from you in the near future. We're going to move on, because time goes very quickly, to you're also a land developer, have been for many years.
Yes.
And you're responsible for work projects in Whistler, Burrard, and the Angus lands in Southwest Marine.
Yes.
Let's talk about the mansions there. You lived in one.
Yes, we had bought several mansions and acreage on Southwest Marine Drive. Nelson Scalbania was one of my partners. Right. And that was quite an experience, because up to that time, I had been doing a little bit of developing and purchasing property and reselling and fixing it up.
How did you start? Just out of interest?
I don't know. I was always interested in property. My father bought and sold, and it kind of, in law, I practiced real property law, commercial and corporate. So I guess the real property kind of had an interest for me. And but this was the biggest project that I had encountered to that stage. We had built a shopping center in Coquitlam prior to that time, and I was involved in several apartment buildings in Vancouver. But this was interesting because of the mansions and the property going all the way to the Fraser River and so on. So we didn't know what we were going to do with the property, and I started living in the Casamia, and that was. What
was the Casamia?
It was a beautiful.
Sounds exotic.
It was a beautiful house. It was built by the Rifle brothers, and it on a Spanish style, and it was about over 18,000 square feet with huge rooms and a ballroom downstairs that was on a springboard dance floor with the gold ceiling, and I was told that the Commodore spring dance floor was built by the same people that built the Casamia dance floor. So it was interesting to have parties there. And
that's what I was going to say. You must have had many fine parties there.
I couldn't afford to have that many, but yes, we had some.
But how could you not with your own ballroom, Mir?
Yes. Yes. And
did you feel sometimes lost in it, in a house that vast?
Well, actually,
In day-to-day living?
it was a nice feeling to live in a big house like
Is it?
that. But
Yeah.
now I'm kind of used to something smaller because
Yeah.
for a time I felt claustrophobic if I ever lived in something smaller. But
Yeah.
now I'm getting used to it because you can just close up and go and travel, and
Oh,
that's what
yeah.
I enjoy to do doing now.
Exactly. It would be very hard to maintain.
Yes, you're right.
Just talking about Nelson Skalbania, his wife actually won an award for her restaurant recently.
Yes, she
Can
did.
you tell us? Tell us about which
Well,
restaurant?
I read it in the paper,
Yeah.
but it's in her Wedgwood Hotel.
Right, the Wedgwood.
Eleni Skalbania, and she runs a very nice hotel.
It's a lovely hotel.
European-style
Yeah.
hotel. And she won an award, I think it's a 5 stars, was awarded to her
Yeah.
by the Automobile Association.
Great.
She must be very proud of that.
Yeah. Well, she's worked hard for it.
Yes.
Yeah. And you were also involved with Whistler?
Yes, I still am to a
Yeah.
certain extent. We have, with partners, I have some property in Whistler. We built, a few years ago, we built the Eva Lake Estates. And I was also involved with the Seasons at Whistler, which is a timeshare condominium project. And also I built some houses right at Whistler by the gondola. So I had my
So
share
you know
of experience.
Whistler.
Yes, a little bit.
Where's Whistler going? Do you see it continuing to expand and attract world-class
Well,
visitors?
it's been rated by some of the
Yeah.
magazines in the world as the top ski resort in the
Yeah.
world, and I can't
So
see
the
it.
sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Mir, go ahead.
No, that's okay. It's just
Yeah.
that there isn't that much land available, and I
Yeah.
suppose eventually people will be moving to Pemberton, and Pemberton will be the next hot spot in British Columbia.
Is that right? So listen up out there. Pick
I
something
don't know
up in
how many
Pemberton
years
while
it'll-
you can.
I don't know how many years
Yeah.
it'll take, but I
Yeah.
would predict that
Is that
Pemberton
right?
will be a hot
Well,
spot.
that's good to know, because it's good to plan ahead and get in there
Yes.
while you can. How about Vancouver? Are you happy with the way it's going, the way the city's developing?
Yes, I think it's doing
think we're
really
going-
well, and we've got a slow growth policy, and people or the planners seem to think things out very carefully before they change the zonings, and they get the community involved. The city council gets the community involved, which is excellent, and I'm very pleased with the way Vancouver is going and the way
Great.
we're preserving our heritage buildings in Gastown and some of the buildings in Yaletown and so on. Although the Yaletown area has changed radically.
Yeah, very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, in a very short time. Okay, time is going on here. You also, at one point, you're involved in the modeling industry. You were the owner of Blanche McDonald Agency.
Yes.
For a while.
And it was the modeling part of it only.
Yeah.
And we had the school too.
Yeah.
But we bought that after Expo. We thought that Vancouver was going to go places in the modeling industry after Expo. It didn't turn out that way, so
Recession hit.
the recession hit and so on. So we kind of got out of the business. But I've always been interested in photography and modeling and so on. At the moment, I'm a scout for some of the New York agencies and several
Great.
European agencies. And I try to do a little bit of photography to keep up with it
In your spare time.
in my spare time.
You also play tennis. You were playing tennis this morning, so
In
you do
beautiful
get a
sunny
little spare
Vancouver,
time.
yes.
I was just very quickly, with this land development and the other things you do, particularly the risks involved, does it take a special kind of personality to? Because I know you lost your shirt at one deal. One point.
How did you know
You told
that?
me.
I did.
But how do you deal with that? I mean, the stress level must be incredible when you're
Well,
investing
the stress
a lot of
level
money.
is great if you do a big project, but
Yeah.
you just have to put it past you, behind you, and move on to something else.
Yeah. Does it require a special personality, or?
Yes, it does,
Yeah.
because you can certainly get a heart attack.
That's
very
what I'm
quickly
saying. You
if
don't want to be, what is it,
if you
type
lose-
A?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you lose your fortune, and it's best not to put everything in one basket, as you probably
Yeah.
realize. But sometimes, if something interesting comes by, and maybe the best thing is to syndicate it and get a few people involved instead of doing it yourself.
And do you get lots of exercise, and do you have any little personal secrets, like very quickly before we go, that
if-
help you cope with everything?
In the real estate, or just
No, just
coping?
your personal life to help you cope.
Oh, I just try to keep active and do a little bit of sports. I enjoy rollerblading very much, and I enjoy boating, and And the summer, I'm looking forward to summer because I do a lot of activities on the water. I have a place in Point Roberts, and I really enjoy that area.
Great. So that provides the balance
Yes.
with all the other
Yes.
international stuff. Our time is up, Mir.
Thank you.
So we'll
Gloria.
be looking for the videos, and we're actually going to show a little excerpt on this show. And good luck to you. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Andersons for providing this lovely setting for the interviews. For contact, I'm Gloria Creighton. Please join us next time.
Golden Kyiv, a city on the crossroads of a difficult past and a promising future. Over 1,300 years old, it is a city of energy, frustrations, smoke and mirrors, hopes, hustle and bustle. Kyiv is joining Europe slowly, slowly shaking off the lethargy of more than 70 years of Soviet mismanagement. It's a city finding its way, but it's a city that has seen it all. Conquerors, pilgrims, traveling merchants, famine and feasting.